There are 5 symptoms that really separate a 50% mental health rating from a 70% mental health rating. It's something I get asked all the time. And if you are at 50% and you're kind of teeter-tottering the line, you're going to see in your decision letter, the VA most closely associates you with 50% versus 70%, although you had some symptoms at 70%, okay? So those 5 symptoms are really going to be suicidal ideation, frequent anxiety, I'm going to explain all of these, episodic depression, irritability, and then lastly is a huge one, which is your inability to maintain effective relationships. That's really the big 5 that separate 50 and 70. Can you have all 5 of those and still be 70 or 50%? Yes, you can. It's the severity of these 5 that are really going to push you into the 70% range. There is a hidden 6th one, if you will, that's obsessive rituals. You're going to see that with like extreme ADHD, extreme OCD level type stuff, okay? Like counting 4 blocks every time you walk down the sidewalk, that type of deal. So here are the 5, right? So going back to suicidal ideation, it is not just having thoughts of doing the deed, okay? It's more so that you've thought about it in a plan. It may not be written plan, like a 5-paragraph order, here's how I'm going to do it, but you've thought about how you're going to do it, right? Whatever that looks like to you. It can also be being super desensitized to death, right? When a death happens in the family or you're at a funeral, maybe you get bored. You're just not, that news doesn't affect you like it should. It doesn't affect you like it's going to affect your spouse, okay? Or your other family member. So suicidal ideation is absolutely huge. It's on the more severe side of the house. Looking at anxiety and frequent panic attacks, okay? That's a big one here, and it's on a spectrum. A panic attack is one where your heart's beating and your chest cavity is moving and you can feel it, and it kind of feels like a heart attack and you think you're going to die. That's a panic attack for sure. A panic attack on the other end of the spectrum is also, before you give a presentation at work, your armpits are sweating, your hands are sweaty, you're going through like, what if they don't like it? What if that? It's like the what if scenario, and you kind of just bury yourself in this hole, and you really just have this like moment to yourself. No one can kind of see what's going on, but you're freaking out inside of here, okay? That's an example. There are billions of examples. So suicidal ideation, frequent panic attacks or anxiety, right? And episodic depression. I like to describe this as a self-licking ice cream cone in a circle, right? We have all these daily life activities we need to do, whether it's for work, doing the dishes, doing house chores, picking up the kids from daycare, whatever that looks like for you. You have all these things, but you kind of melt in your couch, right? When you sit on your couch, you feel like you physically can't get up and that depression sets in. So all these chores don't get done, right? Or they get done, but at a way later time. And as that happens, there's still more daily life activities and more work projects that needs to get done, but you don't do them because you're depressed. And now you're playing catch up on what you didn't do. And so you see this self-licking ice cream cone, right? And there'll be times when you're on an all-time high and you're on top of it. But the second that depression sets in, we kind of see this revolving circle, right? Again, that's just an example. There are billions of examples of what depression looks like. What I see, especially in like my close friends and people that other veterans I know personally, I see them fall into that self-licking ice cream cone of depression. So that's 3. Suicidal ideation, right? Frequent panic attacks, episodic depression. The 4th one is irritability. I like to use Patches O'Houlihan's from the movie Dodgeball as the example here. I want you to think of like the senile Vietnam era veteran that has these outbursts that get very mad. That's what we're talking about here, right? Now that's a little joke to lighten a hard subject, but it could look anything from like domestic violence, which would be evidence, by the way, for your claim. If you've been arrested for domestic violence, whatever that looks like in the home, solid example, or even outside the home, okay? Anger management issues, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you get mad, you have outbursts, maybe you break stuff in the home, you punch walls, you throw stuff, okay? Anywhere in that spectrum is going to be irritability, and that is solid medical evidence. All right, now speak to your healthcare team about all these. And these are some heavy topics, okay? So that's 4. Suicidal ideation, frequent panic attacks, episodic depression, irritability, and the last one, and definitely the heaviest subject, at least for me to talk about personally, is the inability to maintain effective relationships. That can look different for every single person. If you have a spouse, you might be married, right? And God bless your spouse, whether that's a husband or a wife, for them putting up with your mental health stuff, okay? Because it's tough on them too, which is another reason you should be rated, by the way. But your inability to sympathize or empathize with them on that emotional level is just really hard for you to do, probably, right? And that's with a spouse. It could be with a family member, your roommate, whatever that looks like for you, okay? On a more serious note, on a way more serious note, if you have children, all right, especially if you're a mother, and it still affects fathers as well. Does not, trust me, mental health does not discriminate, all right? But you may really struggle to connect with your kids on that emotional level, which is really, it sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put that, okay? That can, over time, that your mental health condition and those relationships that you are ineffectively building, because you're building a relationship, it's just not one you probably want, right? A relationship is being established, but it's your inability to maintain effective relationships. You'll see that in 38 CFR. And if you have children, they are affected big time. Big time with this, okay? And so you may struggle connecting emotionally with them. You may struggle sympathizing with them or empathizing with them. And again, this looks different for every single veteran. But those 5 are really going to separate 50% from 70%. And it's not a check in the box. Oh, yep, I struggle connecting with my kids, check in the box. You really need to describe and explain that. 1, to your healthcare provider, because we submit evidence-based claims. And 2, to the CMP examiner. If you rely on the CMP examiner only for this, which totally works many times, I'm not a big fan of it, you're kind of taking that gamble. It's my opinion that we speak with our healthcare team, get healthcare. That also means evidence as well. Having treatment is evidence, okay? And having that evidence and submitting that evidence-based claim will absolutely help you either, 1, with your initial mental health claim, with an increase, with a supplemental, whatever that looks like for you, okay? But yes, going from 50% to 70% for mental health is a big deal. Many veterans fall into that trap of they don't want to talk about mental health, which, trust me, I understand that. I can sympathize with, right? But it's if you want the rating, getting the evidence can only help your case. And that's all I got for today.